Hello, Hayssam. Hope you're doing well. Sorry it's taken me a little while to get you this video, but I wanted to make this video to illustrate a couple hours that we spent together and the changes that you were able to make to your swing. First of all, I want to say I don't know if I've ever had a student pick this up as quickly as you have and be able to change the geometry of their swing as fast as you were able to do. I wanted to just sort of make this video to recap all the elements that we talked about during your lesson. Primarily our number one goal was to teach you to learn to hit the ground in the same spot, learn to teach you to hit the golf ball with a predictable curve, and also to teach you the motions of your correct motions of your body that would help generate power in the golf swing to help you hit the ball further. So talking about that very first fundamental of hitting the ground in the same spot every time, we had to have a lengthy discussion about how to control the low point of the swing arc. And during that discussion, we talked about how the lower body's role and how the knees need to change flexion accordingly, how the pelvis needs to extend, how the hips need to turn on a slanted angle, and lastly how the spine must change flexion throughout the golf swing. In addition to that, we also talked about the need to keep the arms straight and maintain your left arm radius. And we also talked briefly about the wrist angles and how controlling the wrist angles will also help to control the low point of the swing. I have video of your swing on the left before we worked together, and video on the right after we'd covered a few things. So I also, if you'll remember, I used basically 10 key words to describe this pattern and this motion, and those 10 key words will be critical for you to take to the range and sort of rehearse and think, and also you can use this video. I've drawn a circle right around your head, and the first thing that I want to illustrate in these videos is how the axis, the upper axis, is kept stable throughout the golf swing. On the left here, if you remember, I described the upper axis as just the midpoint of your shoulders there, and I just put a red dot. And I also described the lower axis as sort of your belt buckle there. And we learned for this axis to maintain stable, the spine must change flexion accordingly throughout the swing. Otherwise, the head would move all around during the golf swing, and the upper axis will therefore move backwards and forwards, move all around. And as that axis moves, the low point of the swing arc moves as well. So just to kind of illustrate those things, I'm going to play the video here on the left slowly for you so you can see your before motion. Notice how as the club is moving away, your body mass is starting to drift to the right. We get to the top of the backswing here. We're in a position where the upper axis has translated or moved away from the target. Therefore, the low point of the golf swing has also moved back behind the golf ball. We have no pelvic extension and we have no spinal extension, and that is denoted by this severe angle going up your back here. If we take a look at the video on the right, some of the key words that we use were, first of all, weight forward. And how I described that was just a gentle slide of your hips forward, and that's placing about 55 to 60% of your weight here on the left leg. We also talked about handle forward and straight arms, and you're demonstrating those beautifully there in the picture. We also talked about the first move as the club starts away, is that we wanted the left shoulder to work down and back under your chin. There needed to be a rotational movement, but there also needed to be a change in spinal flexion. And what is actually happening there is that we're going from a forward tilt directly into a leftward tilt as the shoulders start to turn. And we're moving into extension. And that's happening because the right knee is beginning to straighten and the left knee is beginning to flex slightly in towards the ball. You'll notice the arms are remaining straight. The spine is extending at the top of the backswing. Let me get some of these lines off of here. The hips have turned on what we call a slanted angle. The right hip has turned higher than the left. And now we have a straight line more or less, down the spine. Okay, so the player on the right has definitely maintained the integrity of the low point. Player on the left has skewed the low point of the golf swing and therefore started a complete chain reaction of events that need to occur in order to strike the golf ball. So let's look at the compensations that you have here on the left to try to get this golf ball. So we've got to make a big move, lateral move back to the left. We've got to release the wrist angle slightly too soon. I would say that's not bad. Not bad at all. Your compensation, though, is to slightly move into lateral flexion a little too soon. And what I mean by that is your rightward side bend. If we looked at those two axis points again, and I just draw a line from the upper to the lower, you'll see there's a lot of axis tilt there. The only problem with this move is that it creates a path that can shift well too far to the right. And what that path to the, and what I mean by the path is, remember the discussion of TrackMan and the club path moving out to the right. Well, if that path gets skewed too far to the right, it can potentially create too big of a differential between the where the club face is pointing and the path of the club. And this differential between the two here determines how much curvature our golf ball is going to have on it. Okay? And if we get too much of a differential there, we can hit overdraws, or if we don't time the face just perfectly, we can hit straight pushes. So it's not as tight a ball flight. If you take a look at here on the left, also, one other thing, the tilting back motion, of the spine is also going to create, again, low point issues, which means sometimes, and you demonstrated this, when you're not timing it correctly, you will hit the ground before the ball. So you hit a lot of fat shots, and those fat shots were coming from the axis translating, or the axis sort of moving toward the right, or tilting back, or whatever terminology you'd like to use. That's creating low point issues. The golfer on the right has his weight forward, and he's going to move his weight further forward with a lateral hip slide to start the downswing. The arms are going to stay straight, and the wrist angles are going to stay more stable. He's going to move into impact with a beautiful flat left wrist. I mean, honestly, you can't really expect a student to do it a whole lot better than that. I can put your picture up there next to a lot of tour players right now, and they look very, very similar. So we've got, with this impact position, we've got more control over our club path. We've got a slightly rightward club path. We've got much better control of our club face. We're able to hit push draws all day long from this position. We also are hitting the ball with compression because we're slightly de-lofting the golf club because of the handle of the golf club leaning forward. We've got very nice straight arms. And now we're preparing to get into extension again, which is the jumping and tucking type of motion that I described to you. So again, back here on the left, through impact, notice how the left wrist is starting to slightly break down and cup. That's because the rapid rate with which your club face is closing throughout the hit, it's overtaking the left wrist. Also, the pelvis is not extending and raising and turning. Now remember, maintaining those wrist angles is impossible if your upper body, your core, doesn't continue to turn and extend. Centrifugal force is going to make the club head overtake your hands every single time. On the right here, we're in much more extended position. Arms are much straighter on into the finish. Now, any critique for you would be to continue to work on jumping, tucking, extending. Okay, Hayssam, here we have Charlie Wee on the left, and I just wanted to use his swing as an illustration of the motion that I'm trying to teach you here. But as I play it, you can see all the similarities. Weight forward, handle forward. Again, let me back you up here so you can kind of look at those position by position. Look at your setup. I mean, they're pretty close to exactly the same. As the weight, as the club starts to move away, you notice how Charlie's left shoulder works down, his hands work inward, his arm stays straight, and his weight stays forward. Again, your position on the right, Very, very similar. Now, Charlie has a great move down. Notice how I want you to notice how his left knee sort of presses into the ground. His hip starts pushing forward as the arms start to drop. Now he's starting to jump and tuck his hips. He's starting to raise his belt buckle up into the target in this direction. Here he is at impact. Again, here you are at impact. Very, very similar position. You'll notice that the only difference would be he probably has a little more weight left. He also has his hips slightly opened a little bit more because he started to jump and tuck his tailbone sooner than you have. Just past impact, notice how your hips are no longer traveling forward, but Charlie's his pelvis continue to push forward and extend onto the finish. So this motion right here, the extension and the follow through, is the piece that I want you to continue to work on. Lastly, Hayssam, I wanted to take one look at your down the line view and point out one very critical element to you. Obviously, you described to me that you wanted to learn to draw the golf ball consistently. So to draw the golf ball, you realized that you needed to have a club path that's moving out to the right with a club face that's open to the target line but closed in relation to that path. Okay? Now, as we talk about the elements that give us that rightward path, first of all, it's weight forward and the handle forward. But second of all, it's the hands in. It's the inward component of the hand swinging inward, and that is somewhat controlled by the rate with which the right knee straightens in the backswing. The quicker we straighten the right knee, the more the hands move inward. It's also controlled by the shoulder down effect. And what I mean by that is if you turn your shoulders on a steep enough angle, the hands will sort of naturally move inward. If we look at your swing here on the left before we work together, I want you to denote where the butt of this club is. And I want you to notice how when you start the club away, do you see how the butt of the club is moving out away from you? Well, what's happening is that your shoulders are turning flat, your left forearm is rotating to the left, and your left arm is not moving inward. It's moving straight back because at about right here, your left arm is parallel to the ground. And you can see that your left arm is pretty much parallel to the target line. And again, I described to you that we wanted the left arm to move inward about 20 degrees. 20 degrees inside the stance line. So if you take a look here on the right, you'll see a completely different motion. You see that the butt of the club is moving inward, and when the left arm reaches parallel to the ground, about right here, you can see the left arm is considerably more inward than the picture here on the right, or excuse me, on the left. You also see the golfer right knee straightening, left knee flexing, which you don't see on the left. And you also see the golfer on the left turning in flexion, whereas the golfer on the right is turning into extension. So completely different golf swings. Hips are now turned on a slanted angle. Right knee is straightened, left knee is flexed. The left shoulder has worked in a downward fashion. The hands have traced a concentric arc on an inward motion, and you're going to be able to draw the golf ball from there with ease. So again, I don't want to give you too much to think about, but that was one of the critical elements to your golf swing that will now allow you to draw the golf ball consistently. And just so to recap, kind of a checkpoint for you is stopping when your left arm is parallel to the ground, about right there. There's a comparison of the two positions. Look at where the shaft is running through. We want the shaft to run through sort of the base of the right forearm. Over here on the left, I mean, it's basically running through your shoulder. the left arm is not inward enough. And again, the comparison is the stance line. We want the left arm plane to be inside of the stance line, about 15 to 20 degrees. The more in you get it, the more you're going to be able to draw it. We can get it too far in, we can get it too deep and start hitting deflected draws and pushes, but for you right now, I'd rather see you move it a little too far in than continue to move it straight back down the target line and turn inflection. All right, anyways, it was a pleasure working with you. I look forward to meeting you again, and maybe I can get over to Switzerland pretty soon and hang out with you. But if you have any questions, hey, feel free to give me a call and we'll talk through the video.